So I'll just dive in. Even though, like I said, everyone has spoken to everything on my slides, so I'll just re-emphasize and reinforce why the ecosystem has to do with everyone, not just the QA engineers, everyone, and the blame shouldn't just be put on marketing people alone. So I'm going to be speaking on behalf of everyone who sells, who drives visibility. So just show that when you build a product and it doesn't sell, we all shouldn't just sit down and point blame. We should drive it as a collaboration. So like I said, we're bidding for the last mile, and my job is to ensure that we understand what last mile means. Yeah, my first slide speaks to the reality check. I'm sure we all live and grew up in Nigeria, and coming into VI today, we came from different places. I came from the other end of Lagos. So I'm sure some who came from Alakwere to VI, and I think one funny thing about we have a very unique definition for definition for destination. You probably can tell someone that I'll be in VI in 5 minutes. In reality, you're supposed to be in VI in 5 minutes, depending on where you're coming from. But because of how things are in Lagos, 5 minutes can actually be 45 minutes. I have people who travel from, for example, Ibadan to Lagos. That journey, let's say it's 50 kilometers, could probably take you maybe 45 minutes to get into Lagos, right? But you haven't gotten to your last journey. Maybe your last journey is in VI. But you'll be surprised that from your destination into Lagos to VI should take you about 500 meters, right? Or you tell your boss, I'll be there in 5 minutes. Lagos will humble you. Because the truth is that from that spot to Lagos to your office should take you about 15 minutes. But because we know how traffic in Lagos is, you probably won't get to your office until another 20, 30 minutes. And what happens? They call you liars. So it means that you can't, your definition of I've gotten to the last mile shouldn't be defined by it was a driver, there was pothole, there was something that happened. It's because once you haven't gotten to that office where you have promised your boss, you haven't actually finished your last mile. So sometimes when in tech, when we say things like I'm done, and I saw a lot of people spoke about done. Like I said, everyone has spoken to my slides. So I'll just re-emphasize or reinforce what you said. When we say done, does not mean that you've gotten to Lagos in 45 minutes from Ibadan, but how come it's taking you another 20 minutes to get to the office? Why? Because if you bring that into products, an engineer will tell you they finished building your products, and oh yeah, marketing, go and sell. And I sell these products and I'm unable to actually pay. Why? Because your bottom or what you put there isn't clear enough for me to pay. We build products in mind just because someone has written the code and that's how the product should be bought. Are we saying that's how customers want to perceive their products? In my journey of working, I would sit there in the office and would design some lovely solutions, and we all test our solutions in the office, and we'll go home clapping for ourselves that we have built, not bearing in mind that there's someone at the other side of the road who is also going to use our products. And why testing? I'm not saying we don't put them in mind, but most of the time we build product for ourselves. When I work with my team and we're asking questions about building a campaign, I always say, please just take yourself out of it. You're not the target audience. The target audience are different people who are outside this building, who are going to use that product. As long as they are unable to use that product, we're failed. Sometimes they will fight you, marketing, go and sell. There's no harm to perform magic, right? I can write a beautiful advert, create a nice thematic campaign, and customers just embrace them. Or my friends just love my campaign and they try to use it. My friend will tell me, okay, this product isn't working. But how many customers outside can reach out to you to say your product isn't working? A simple OTP, I want to complete an OTP, and I'm unable to do that. Or a simple, I want to load, your web page, I'm unable. Why? When we build, We built in mind that, the office network is beautiful, right? We have a nice, what's it called? Wi-Fi that actually can help you. Once you open, you tell me you open in 3 minutes, in 3 seconds. But we've forgotten the Mr. Kenichi on the chat, who doesn't have a perfect access to internet, or someone in our career who is going to use our products. So when we build in mind that the value only ends when there's revenue. So I used to be a peer, a product manager. I used to love to build, I used to love to design. But now that I lead growth, my job is no longer to build. My job is impact. And that impact is what? Is revenue and is retention. One of the things I always say growing up is, in my career is that as long as your products cannot retain users, you failed. In the banking days, we had a dashboard. And as a PM, you wake up, the first thing you check is your dashboard. The second thing you check is, have customer dropped off? And you look at them. But that shouldn't just end you there. Why shouldn't you work with marketing to say, marketing, how can we help? Because one, everybody has built the products and they moved on. You've done your job, I've done my job. And one of the reasons why I won't have you go through my slides again like that is because they've all spoken to that. But I want to emphasize on when we build, and we build in the mind for ourselves. When I go to sell, I'm just going to be speaking English, and that's where it will end. But the truth that is, for me, my own is impact, mine is revenue, mine is retention. As long as the product you build is unable to retain user, we've all failed. And the mindset that I think we should go home with, it's the fact that we're all in the ecosystem together. It's not just about the queue has done the job, they should go home, or I have finished writing the code, so marketing go and sell. So I'm not here to say marketing don't have their own faults, but I'm here to say when you have your sprint planning, how come marketing are always involved in your planning? Why do we come in when you want to demo? Why shouldn't I have an opinion or an option or a feedback on why your product shouldn't be this way? You tell me to go and sell the products, and I go sell the products, and I come back to say, customers are not buying it. Why? They ask me, customer, your marketing, your campaign isn't nice. The vibe is not giving. You are not speaking the language of the customer. When we are building the products, did we speak the mind of the customer, or did we speak the language of the customer? As a PM, and I see that we all do that, so as a PM, I think the biggest lesson I learned was the voice of customer is so important. We build products where we would assume that a customer won't pay for it. But the truth is, if you go and ask a Musa down the road to say, if I build a product that allows you to check your account balance, would you buy it? His answer is always very valid. Yes, I would. Why? Because back then, 10 years ago, 5 years ago, before we had this fancy, we can check all our things on our phone. I had aunties who would take a bus to go to GT Bank in Ujeleba because they want to check their balance. But when we ask questions like, would you pay $10 to check your account balance from the comfort of your home? Most of them are willing and happy to do that. But when you are in your session and you don't involve marketing, who actually talks to these customers, who sit down with these customers, who knows what these customers are, we don't build a product or we don't come back to you to say, a customer needs this product, I think you should build it for this customer. If I'm not in your sprint planning, if I'm not part of your reviews, I won't be able to give you feedback that a customer actually won't use these products. When I look at some apps, or we open some apps today, and it's so fun, and we all have interface with so many apps. I'm sure even as a dev guy, as a kid, I'm sure you see some app and you're swearing like, who did this? That's how customers also see some of our products or solutions, and they look like, when you were building, did you even think about Mama Risi, who doesn't know that a submit button is this click? Why can't we just put something like check in or submit or something? So the fancy word we have today is that lovely. We can write all the nice word campaigns and all, but when your product is not retaining customers, your product is not bringing in new customers, your product is not bringing in customer who has gotten angry and left you, it still means that we haven't built the last mile. Um, I'll just quickly speak on, so for me, like I said, as leading growth right now, I don't manage whether you have built or not. What a company wants to see is revenue. And today, I go to some offices in my building, and I'm like, wow, they're using the latest MacBook. And they say, yes, I'm an engineer and I'm not supposed to use it. But it's true that what pays for that fancy MacBook you're using is because the company is making revenue. Yes, you may not sit in the rooms where those decisions are being made, but sometimes the impact of the products that we build actually, at the long run, actually brings in a lot of revenue. I'm proud to say I work into Switch, and I know every year there's something nice, that companies are later. Why? Because we're not just building product, just sit down, somewhere. We're building product that enables life, make life easier. And I've had instances where I go somewhere and people say, oh, you want me to switch? Oh, somebody helped me to do this. Somebody helped me to do that. I go back with that feedback to know that even though I'm in marketing, some of the times, it's not only my marketing adverts that is bringing customer back. It's someone who has spoken nicely about a product they've used and they will continue to use. That's where the impact comes in. Sometimes we may not really say thank you to the team that actually made this happen. But the thank you still come from increase in salary, or even if there's no increase in salary, you're still in the company, you are still part of the team. So my message here today is to say that we're actually an ecosystem. The collaboration works more when I'm involved in the earlier stage. I've had instances where I'm invited to a demo, and yeah, I don't own the company, but I'll tell you, I'm not going to sell these products. Not because I don't want your product to be seen, because I've already seen that it's going to fail. Why? Because you only had yourself in mind when you were building these products. And I always say, it's not like I blame the team. I always say something like, if you don't go outside, we've had issues where times when we take the engineers out. I don't take them to VI or mainland. I take you to, what's it called again? Animal show. I like wearing. That's where the bulk of the revenue that we see today comes from. And because you don't see the frustration when the customer types, we just toggle. You said I should submit, and I'm trying to submit, and it's loading. When we were building, we didn't think about the guys who still use 3G. They won't change to 5G because of your products. Why are we not building in mind for the guys who still use 3Gs, who don't have the fancy phones, who just want to just make life easier for people within their system? I had one sales team back then who would call and shout, I'm tired of selling. Because when I go to this customer and I beg them to use our products, right there I'm seeing them collect cash because I'm trying to load, I'm trying to use your web page, and it's just rolling and rolling and rolling. So yes, everyone has spoken to the value, but mine is most of the time we build in mind without having that collaborative spirit. And I don't think there's anything wrong, but I just think it's something we should take back home. I've had instances when I'm involved in sprint, and I'll ask questions. It is look or seems foolish. But the truth is that when you launch the products, you realize that actually these questions that she raised during our demo or during our sprint actually helped us, to tweak some of this, what's it called? Some of these ideas. And I want to talk about the product hot potato. And I think that it's even in my family, it happens where we throw blames. Oh, he's the person. The product's owner writes, stories and just passes it on, and the engineers write the code and passes it on, the QA tests and all, and you just in marketing. I think that should come from a place of working for ourselves. I met someone here yesterday, and she was talking about how they work as Sprint. She said she's been in a company where she doesn't even know who the marketing team are. I'm like, why? She said because that's the job of the products manager. I'm like, why should I be the person's job? She said, my job is to do this, and I pass it on. Everyone keep passing it on. Nobody wants to take, ownership of anything. Why? Because when you build any products, the marketing teams and magician, their job is to ensure that it sees like, sells. But when I'm unable to sell, you blame marketing. And I'm saying this so when you go back, to your organization, you know that your marketing team actually doing a fantastic job. If you do not involve them at the stage where they need to be involved, and they don't sell your products, you seem like their marketing campaign isn't working. But were they involved? Did you tell them how you want these customers to dance when they embrace your products? So it would be nice if we all involve, our marketing team or whoever it is that needs to be involved as an ecosystem. Like it's a win-win for everyone. I've had instances where someone will tell me I want to work in sales, and I'm asked, why do you want to work in sales? And the person says because they get a lot of bonuses. But those bonuses they get as well is as a result of everyone working, right? And it doesn't mean that because they are in sales and they're getting bonus makes them different, because that's their job to sell. And if we're not working closely with everyone to ensure that, we sell to the extent that everybody gets, reward. And everybody getting reward is a customer, not just using your product once. When a customer comes back to use your products over and over again, it means that, that's amazing code that you build actually is solving the problem. That code that you actually built has, made the company, move from a 10% retention rate to 20%. And that value is the last mile where you know that the product is not just sitting down in someone's app. The product is being used, not just once, but repeated usage. So yes, everyone has spoken to all of this, but my emphasis here today, and that's why I don't think I want to go through my slide, is to ensure to speak on the value of these solutions that you build. If your MD is unable, I know companies today where their MDs, before they use their app, they would have to call. How should I go? Why shouldn't the product be simple? I'm not going to call this brand, but I think that they've done a fantastic job, and you can all even look at the system and abilities. I was one of those people that would say, I will never use this app to pay. It looks like, for you to be using this app to pay, it means that you have borrowed money, you have done this. And I have a very big organ today who I would think he would use an app. And he told me I was on my site one day and I'm trying to move money to somebody, and I kept moving. And I have one of my artisan guy who was paying for cement using the app. And he was curious and I asked, tell me about this. I said, okay, if you know they use this app, gets peace of mind. Why? You built an app that tells you when you're transferring a large amount of money. That's a fantastic job. Somebody would have thought about it, right? Even if you're transferring 10,000, and that's the first time of you transferring that money, that tells you, large amounts of money detected. It tells you when, maybe you're closing your eyes and you're not. We've had instances where we've transferred 100,000 to somebody because I wanted to transfer 10,000. And sometimes, for some of us, maybe you're too ashamed to say, oh, I mistakenly transferred. The app tells you. That is when you build for the last mile. You build for something that you can go to sleep and you wouldn't have to be checking. Let's check whether they will call us. In my early days, when we build products and we deploy to live, at least for 2 weeks, nobody sleeps. You're just looking at your phone like this because you want to be sure that that product, is serving what it has been built for. Why? But today, I'm very happy that, as an ecosystem or in the payments space where we've been, we are now beginning to look at ourselves as collaborators and not competitors. It used to be like that. How do we work in the same company and we sound or we feel like we're competitors? We're not competitors. It's a drive for the value at the end of the day. When Mrs. Bukola was talking, where she said that, engineers, marketing, everybody keeps fighting. And I always question, why are we fighting? This is not your father's company. It's a company that pays for everyone. So yes, can we look at, going back to, our respective company, looking at ourselves as an ecosystem where the QA is also asking the product we deployed last week. Oh, I tried it. Oh, it's fantastic. Oh, I asked my mother in Uyo to try it. She tried it and she gave me feedback. We've gone back to implement the feedback. It makes the job, like Sam said, he loves going to the office every day. It makes the job easy because in the payment sector, what we do is we're not just building, we're enabling lives. We're making life easy. I was one of the team that built USSD, and I had one auntie who calls me then to say, oh, this has made my life easier. When I remember the days of when we first launched USSD, you can actually check, literally sit down in your house and perform a full-blown banking transaction in your house. Someone thought about it and someone did it. And I think one of those things are the things that make people in the payment sector feel like they're like heroes, right? So you're not just coming to the office to work, you're coming to make life a lot easier for everyone. And so that mindset is what I would like to leave. Lastly, I would like to speak on, I'm focusing on Lagos traffic. I'd like to speak on Dawn. And I know it's not my job or my business to speak on Dawn. I think people here have emphasized what Dawn means. But I'd like to say, I'll just read this out because I know everyone involved here. So for me, definition of Dawn for me is, to the Scrum Master, is when it's not when you have cleared the sprint. I'm like, oh, I'm done, I've cleared the sprint. Or when the software guy says, I've written the code that is working, it's done. For me, I think done is when you write a code that scaled a transaction that used to be $10,000 so maybe like $1 million. I think that's when it's done. Your code works every time. I think for the QA, done isn't just when you have when there's no bugs. Done is when it's frictionless. When I open my apps and I can toggle, I don't need to ask, my 14-year-old son, what does this mean? And I think the Gen Alpha kids we have today, they actually going to give us a number money. My son can look at this and I'm like, why is it like this? Why can't it be this? Because people just want to just open their apps and just do their business in 1 minute. Sometimes I'm trying to make some payments and I'm there 5 minutes and I get carried away by something else and I forget to pay. And the next thing, we're in darkness. Why? Because you built a solution that hasn't even it's not even helping me to just dial and just move on. So yes, and to say, when the growth marketing team, can show you that your code, is what has increased our active user rates from a 1 million to maybe 5 million, I think that's what we say we are all done. And the done means revenue and done means retention. So I'm here to say, win-win for me is when your product is able to retain users and when those users are able to advocate for you in places where you're not even around. When someone can call, if they don't know your name, they can call to say, I'll beat my chest. If you use this Access Bank app, it goes every time. That's when it's a win-win. When people can look at your organization to say, are you proud to work here? And you say yes. Why? Because you are not just an entity, an ecosystem. It means that the value that you create, so you build something that actually gives value. So yes, it's about Scrum, but I felt the need that from a marketing perspective, we just don't do vibes. For me, that work very well, people just look at you and like, it's just vibes. But the truth that vibes is what pays for the fancy MacBook that we use today. That vibe is what pays for the trainings that we all, some of you get to go when you go abroad. That vibe is, makes your MD look like, okay, I think we should just do some cola today, let's match the inflation rate today. That's what, for me, that's what done means. And for a win-win is when we don't stop and say, it is my problem, it's not my problem, I've done it. It's to say, let's see how we can fix it together. Or when marketing is going for, they're going to the field to find out how customers feel about our solution. I want to be part of that. I really want to know why customers are really using these products. So yes, ladies and gentlemen, what I'll start to do is my aim was to ensure that we go back to that respective company and it work, as an ecosystem and not, an entity. Thank you. Okay. So I don't know if there's any question, but I think like Sunday says, if I have delivered it well, I probably won't have any questions. But yeah, thank you. There are no questions. Okay.
Okay, thank you. I really love that you talked about us collaborating. I think one of the biggest problems in our in fintech ecosystem or in financial ecosystem is that the product managers work in silos and the marketing team works in silos as well. It's very important for us to collaborate and work together because I believe marketing, we understand our customers more. But my question is, how do we work, how do we change that as individuals without looking like we're micromanaging the product managers? Because that is where the fight comes in. Because they feel like when we're asking questions, and we're asking questions because we don't want to sell a product that doesn't work. And that's why we have a lot of products today that, they say innovation is overflowed. So all the products are innovative, all the products are really, really good, but how do we work with them so that they don't feel like we're micromanaging them as like the product managers and also the technical people?
So I'll just answer this in my opinion, so I don't get quoted. I think when you work in fintech or working in fintech has to do with passion. I don't think you want to work in an organization where your major task is to ensure that you make life easier. Because I work in this situation, I'm always proud to say that the reason why we don't do tally numbers again was because someone saw the need, to build an ATM. Someone saw the need to ensure that you don't send money to your kids in school and they have to wait 2 days later to collect it. Someone saw the need to collaborate with, the different banks to connect them into a rail that today when I send money to you, in real time you're getting it. You have to have that passion. I don't even dress like this when I go to the office. I would wear my sneakers and ask, I hope you're not bringing in products in the next 2 months that I'm going to sell. You give it to them because you also want them to know that it's not something, you're not a magician. You're not going to just perform. I wasn't part of this. Is it too late to come in? You haven't. So when you come to me to say I want to demo, and I wasn't part of the. You have to go back to your bosses, right? Because I also have bosses who can also step in. I think the passion for me is when you try to involve yourself. When you keep going, I don't think anybody wants to sell a product by themselves. But then you see that you come in every time to ask questions. I've had instances where my MD will say, is marketing aware? Is marketing aware of these solutions you want to sell? Why? Because some of us would go to them to say, I hope you don't have any new products you'll sell in the next 3 months that I'm not aware of. I need to speak the language. I need to speak that value. I need to sell that value. I shouldn't spend so much money selling the value. If something has value, customers should be able to embrace it. So we have people who would involve you, but the truth is, if you really are passionate about what you sell, you involve yourself, you go for the sprint planning, but really, when they see you come in every time, I think some people that were like, I just invite marketing. So I've had instances where I go for some meetings where I'm like, what language are you speaking? So sometimes I'll take you back, because I would always take you back. So sometimes they involve. So if they don't involve you, I think you should just step up and just go in. All right, in the absence of the questions, thank you so much. It's really an honor to be here.